In this video, I'm going to show you how to cut these vinyl decals using a Cricut machine and some Starcraft vinyl. What sets these vinyl decals apart is that I cut through the liner, so the shape of the decal actually matches the shape of your image. And we also are going to cut the transfer tape so that it matches the decal as well. I'm Karley Hall, and if you're new here, I am a YouTube craft instructor. I love teaching how to use Cricut machines, cutting machines, lasers, all of those things. So if that's something that interests you, make sure to subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. I did film this tutorial already using a silhouette machine, but the comments have spoken and you want to see it using a Cricut machine. So let's jump into it. I already have the designs that I created over in Silhouette Studio. If you didn't know, you can use Silhouette software and create designs that you can use with your Cricut. I'll link the video on how to do that here so that you can check it out. It will also be in the video description. So that's where I got these images. Now, to make these work with our Cricut, to cut out the liner of our vinyl, we are going to create an offset. When you're cutting vinyl, it is a kiss cut. So you're cutting through the top layer, but you're not cutting through the actual liner, and then you're going to weed away the excess to get your image. So when you start with a piece of vinyl, it's the whole color, and you're just cutting through the top layer, peeling away the excess. You can see a little bit of excess here. I can peel that away, and then it's left on the liner. But in today's tutorial, we're going to cut through the liner completely so that our project looks really professional and it's even easier to weed. So to do that, I'm going to create an offset that's a little bit bigger than my image. So you can see in my example that the white liner is just a little bit wider than my image. To do that, I'm going to select the image I want to offset, and then up at the top, choose this offset function. And then I can scroll this over to be as big or as small as I want. Don't worry too much if you see little inside pieces like this, we'll fix that. So I usually cut my offsets about 1.25 or about 1.1 inches around my image. So if I wanted to type in exactly 0.1, I could even type in that amount. So depending on how big you want your offset, you can type in your amount. And then I do smooth corners and I'll click apply. So you can see that the inside is not filled in, and that's not what we want. So to fix that, while it's still selected, I have my offset selected here. I'm going to click contour and then hide all contours. And you can see now that it's completely filled in. So if I show all contours, that's what it looks like there. If I hide all contours, it's just a circle. So now I have my offset layer. We'll do the same thing to practice on this image so you can see that it will work with something that's not just a circle. Click offset. We can do the same amount, 0.1 or 0.125, depending on how big you want your offset, and then click apply. Same thing, while the offset is selected, come over to contour and choose hide all contours. And there we go, we have our offsets. If I were to try to cut this right now, Cricut wouldn't know to keep these all together, and it would just cut an extra part of my vinyl. Whereas I want to tell the Cricut, I want to cut this multiple times so that it cuts through my liner. So this is a little bit of a hack. If you watched my Silhouette video, it is easier to do this in the Silhouette software, but it's doable, and we are going to kind of hack it so that we can make it work. But to tell the Cricut that I want to cut this over and over so it cuts through the liner, we are going to make some copies. So I'm going to click this duplicate option here, and I'm just going to make 4 extra copies, so a total of 5. I know that seems like a lot, but I have done a lot of test cuts on this, and I feel like 5 is the appropriate amount. So now I'm going to select all of those layers and my image, and I'm going to align them. So I have all those offset layers selected, and then my image, and I'm going to click align and center. We want to bring our Make Today Amazing to the top, so I'm just going to bring that all the way to the top, And now everything is lined up and it looks like one image. To tell the Cricut that I want it to cut all together, I'm going to select everything and choose Attach. Change it back to the teal so you can see that the Make Today Ridiculously Amazing is still on the top. And so now we'll do the same thing for our circle monogram. So I just need to make 5 copies total, so 4 additional copies here. So select my offset layer. 1, 2, 3, 4. Select all of those together, so all of the offset layers and my image. Choose Align, Center, and then we'll bring the monogram all the way to the top. So all I did with that is you can just select the layer and then you can drag it to where you want it to be. So it's all the way to the top. And then, actually, I forgot to mention one thing. Before I attach it, let's make one more copy. We're going to leave that one down here. We're going to come back over here too and grab this copy so that I have extra offset copies here. We'll do something with these a little later on. So now I'm going to select everything and choose Attach. There we go. We'll go back to teal. So now I have, if I click on this, you can see I have the monogram at the top and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 copies of the circle underneath it. Same thing with this image on the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 copies. These 2 images down here we're going to use to cut our transfer tape. So I'm going to change that to a light gray color so I know it's for the transfer tape. So if you were cutting multiple decals, you could do this process over and over so that you can cut all of your images at the same time. So now I have my images ready to go and we can save our progress. Now I'm going to choose Make It. I want to cut my material on a mat, so I'm going to make sure that everything's selected on a mat. And then I have my images arranged. This is going to be my vinyl and this will be my transfer tape. You do want to cut it on a mat since we're cutting through the vinyl. If you were just doing a kiss cut and cutting a vinyl decal, you could cut it without a mat, but since we're cutting through the vinyl, we do need to use a mat. Then we'll click Continue and connect to our machine. I'm using a Maker 3, but you can use whatever cutting machine, Cricut machine that you have. You'll just want to make sure that you adjust your settings based on the machine you have. So if you're using an Explorer series machine that has a dial, you may need to turn to custom and then set your material depending on the machine that you have. So once you're in the custom on a Maker, you don't need to turn it. It just automatically has this option. We're going to choose Browse All Materials. And I created a custom setting for my StarCraft, and to do that, you're going to choose this option here, Material Settings. Scroll all the way down to the bottom and choose Add New Material. You can type in your name, StarCraft, and then click Save. I'd actually probably be a little bit more specific, Permanent Vinyl. And for my machine, I did 135. You can see it here, StarCraft Vinyl 135. So if you were making a custom setting, you would want to type in the name, set to about 135. Make sure to do a test cut because all machines are a little different and I don't want to ruin your material. So do a test cut. I already have mine set up, so I'm not going to save this, but you would save it and then we'll choose it. So to select it, we're going to choose the Browse All Materials again. And now we can just search for StarCraft and I have my setting right here. On the Cricut side, I have my StarCraft vinyl loaded on my mat with the color side facing up and the liner down onto the mat. It's pretty stuck on there. I'm using a standard grip mat. And then to load my material into my machine, you kind of hold your hand against the rollers and while still holding, click the load button. One thing I do before I start my cut is I just ensure that there's no debris on my blade, no vinyl sticking on there. So check your blade before you start cutting. And then once you get the flashing go button, you can click that and it will start cutting. This will take a little bit longer than you're probably used to because it does have to make the 5 cuts around your offset. So you can see right now that it's making multiple passes over the circle. So it's just going to repeat that 5 times since we attached 5 circles to our image. Recently, I've noticed that Cricut has been really off with their cutting progress. So right now it says that the cutting's 100% done and it's very obviously still cutting. So I don't really pay attention to the cutting progress anymore, which is kind of a bummer because it used to be really accurate. My cut just finished, so I'm going to unload this by clicking the unload button, and then I'll weed this in a second. Before I weed it, I'm going to load on the transfer tape onto a different mat. If I were selling my decals, I would want to use a clean mat that has no debris on it because your transfer tape will pick up the debris. So use a nice new clean mat. And then I'm going to place my transfer tape right onto my mat. Doesn't have to be perfect. You can barely see that on there, but the transfer tape is on the mat directly with no liner. The transfer tape that I like doesn't have a liner, so you'll just load it in on the mat. And then for your setting, we're going to choose light cardstock. You could probably use a setting that has less force, but light cardstock worked, so I'm going to use that. I'm done with my cutting machine, so I don't need that anymore. And I'm going to peel off my vinyl. And you can weed while it's still on your mat. I change it up depending on my mood. So I'm going to pop out my cuts, and you can see that it's not perfect right there. There's a little bit of fuzz, and that's with 5 layers. So if you watched my silhouette video, you'll see that it's a lot easier to do this on your silhouette, but it will still work with your Cricut. You just might need to clean it up with some scissors. So I have my scissors right here, and I can just snip off any fuzzy areas. But not bad for cutting through the vinyl and the liner. And to weed vinyl, you just peel away the excess of your design. And if your vinyl is not weeding this easy, you may need to adjust your settings because vinyl should be very easy to weed. And then I'm going to take this ring out and the very outside ring. I do have a little bit of fuzzy on the edge, so I'm just going to clean that up. It's just the liner, so it won't make a big difference, but when we're trying to make sure that our decals look really professional, you'll want to trim off that little extra fuzz. So now your vinyl decal is cut out and weeded, but you want to place your transfer tape on the decal before you send it off to a customer. So to do that, we already cut the transfer tape out, and I'm just going to peel away the excess. I can save this and use it for a different project. So you can see that when I peel this off the mat, it has the shapes missing. So I can save this and cut a different project if I want to. And using a little spatula, I'm just going to lift an edge so that I don't tear it and peel off my transfer tape. So even though my mat was pretty dirty, my transfer tape ended up not getting too dirty. So I have that ready. So I'm ready to place my transfer tape. With a circle, it's pretty easy to eyeball it and get it in the right area. But if you're working with a more difficult shape like the other decal that I'll show you in a second, you may want to tape down your design just a little bit so that it doesn't wiggle around. And you can use a piece of parchment and you can place it over your image just like this so that a little bit is out on the edge. So I have just a little bit of my design revealed, and then I'm just going to place a little bit down. And then what that does is it allows me to position my transfer tape over my decal so I can actually move it around. It's kind of hard to see since it's clear on clear, but I can move this around pretty easily. Once I'm happy with the position, I can stick it down right here, and then I'm going to peel back my transfer tape, remove my parchment, and then I'm going to push down my transfer tape over my decal and just peel away my tape. Then using a scraper or a squeegee, I'm going to burnish down the transfer tape so that my customer doesn't have to do that. And I'll even apply this to a project so you can see how easy it will be for your customer when they receive it. So now I have my decal and the transfer tape already applied, ready to ship off to my customer so that they can apply it to their project. So let's do the next shape so you can see that again. This one is a little smaller. the lettering's a little smaller, so it'll be a little more effort to weed. So when you're weeding something with a lot of detail, you'll want to go pretty slowly to make sure you're not picking up any of the little tiny letters off the liner. But Starcraft vinyl is really amazing when it comes to small detail cuts. So you can see that I haven't lost any of the letters even by just pulling it in real time like this. So I'm going to weed that out. And then for the insides of the letters, I like to use a weeding cup. So you just pick up the vinyl and then stick it into your weeding cup so that you're not worried about those getting stuck to your project. I've weeded my design. Now let's apply the transfer tape the same way. So I'm going to tape down my decal so that it doesn't shift. Grab my transfer tape that I cut using my Cricut. So this one's a little bit more intricate, so I want to make sure that I don't rip it. To apply the transfer tape, we'll place the parchment so that a little edge is exposed. And then line up that edge, the exposed edge, with the transfer tape. And then place it onto the parchment. Again, you can move it around so that you're not locked in right away. And then once you've lined it up with the decal, you'll push in this side that's exposed. So really push that side in. And then peel back your transfer tape, remove your parchment, and then let that transfer tape cover the rest of the design. And then peel away this masking tape on the edge here. Actually, I have a bigger squeegee that I like more. Pushes the transfer tape really nicely. So now I have 2 decals ready to ship to my customers or gift to whoever I want to give them to, and then they can apply them to their project. So I'll show you how we can put them onto a project blank. So now you've shipped your decal off and whoever received it is ready to apply it. You have 2 options. So you can just peel off the liner, and you can see that since I varnished it on, everything peels off really nicely and it sticks to the transfer tape. And then I can just eyeball it, and it actually makes it really easy to eyeball since the decal shape is the same as the transfer tape and the liner. So it makes it really easy to place it, and I can just eyeball it and press. I'll burnish it on. And you can instruct your customer to use a credit card, a gift card, a membership card, and just burnish it on if they don't have a squeegee. Or they can just use their fingers because this vinyl presses in really nicely. Once they've burnished it on, they'll just get an edge of the transfer tape. And the great thing about this transfer tape is you'll see that when I peel it off the paper, it doesn't rip or shred the paper at all. And you can tell your customers that this will continue to cure. I usually say that after about 24 to 48 hours, it's completely permanent, depending on the type of vinyl you're using. So make sure to look at the cure time and then include that with your instructions in your vinyl. Especially if you're putting this on a cup or something that's going to be washed, you'll want to recommend not washing for 24 to 48 hours. So the next way to apply this, we'll do the other side, is if you're a little bit nervous about eyeballing it and you don't want to just stick it down, you can actually use a thing called the hinge method. And I have a video on the hinge method that I can link to as well. And you can link that to your customers if you want. So you place your design, and then using a piece of masking tape, this will be your hinge. So with your liner still on, so the liner's still attached here. I'm gonna place my image where I want it, and I can measure it, make sure it's perfect. And then before I commit, I'm just going to tape it down. And then if I wanted to measure this out and say, oh, I want to move it down, I could make those adjustments because my liner is still on there. So if I was wanting to move it or adjust it in any way, I can do that while my liner is still on. So once I'm happy with the placement, I stick it down with my masking tape. And then what you want to do is take one side, doesn't matter, top or bottom, or if you tape it vertically, left or right, doesn't matter. You'll peel back your transfer tape so that your vinyl is on your transfer tape, and then you'll hold it and trim away the liner with your other hand. Move that out of the way, and then you'll push down your decal so that your top part sticks. I thought that my vinyl was a little bit darker, so sorry that is not as contrasty as I imagined it to be, but I thought it matched well, so that's why I chose that vinyl color. It's a little hard to see. So I have my vinyl stuck down on the top, and then I'm going to flip it up and remove the other side, making sure that all the vinyl sticks on there. And then now push down the other side. Burnish it on. And you can see that the hinge method allows you to get the exact placement that you want. So there you go. That is how you make professional decals with the liner cut to match the decal and the transfer tape to match the decal as well. I absolutely love this technique. I think it really will set your vinyl decals apart. So if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to like it and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you are a Silhouette user and you want to see how to do this using your Silhouette Studio, I have that video as well. I'll link it in the video description. I think that's everything, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.